Hello survivors and welcome to Survivors Guilt, part of the Mutant Fam Horror Consortium, a community of like-minded individuals creating content and building relationships by and for fans of the drive-in. Today, we're taking a look at 2002's Haunted House on the High Seas, Ghost Ship. But first, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now I hope you like jamming out to Mudvayne while salvaging an abandoned boat that's haunted with ghosts that don't want you taking their stuff, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Ghost Ship, written by Mark Hanlon and John Pogue, and directed by Steve Beck, starring Julianna Margulies, Desmond Harrington, Gabriel Byrne, Karl Urban, Ron Eldard, Isaiah Washington, and Emily Browning. Ghost Ship is about a marine salvage crew that sets out to salvage a 40 years lost luxury ocean liner carrying a boatload of surprises. We open up on the Love Boat, oops, I mean the Ghost Ship, the SS Antonia Graza, the year 1962, where these people are dancing and enjoying some opening credits. We get introduced to Katie, who am so bored, so the captain offers her a dance. But when Katie is still bored, they play a game of The Floor is Dead Bodies. Starting our meat bank deposits with numbers 1 through 80. According to the special features, the effects crew had 80 plus bodies here, so I'm just going to start with 80, plus one more when Captain Joker eats it at our 81st deposit into the meat bank. We find out later that there are a total of 1,100 passengers on this boat, and no survivors, which means that our meat bank deposits start with 1,100. Still bored, Katie? Katie, no longer being bored, lets out a scream, sending us 40 years into the future, present day 18 years ago, where we meet the crew of the Arctic Warrior, Greer, Murphy, Dodge, Epps, and Munder. A ragtag salvage group that are towing their latest salvage, a rapidly sinking vessel with a gaping hole. Flash forward onto the mainland, where the crew is celebrating their payday. We also get introduced to another member of the crew, Santos. We then get introduced to Jack Ferryman when he approaches the group with a potentially large opportunity. Jack says he works for the Arctic Weather Patrol and came across a large ship adrift in international waters, and he's offering to hire them to salvage the ship and split whatever money they get for finding it. The crew mulls it over before deciding to pursue it, but they offer Ferryman 10% rather than the 20% that he asked for, and he decides to go for it, but only if they bring him along.
Fine, but I go with you.
Flash forward to later that evening as the group is heading towards their newest job. Santos is driving the boat while listening to the Ghost Ship soundtrack, while the rest of the crew enjoys the ride, except for Jack, who is all seasick and stuff. Santos calls Murphy up to check out the radar when it appears to malfunction, showing the Ghost Ship for a second, and then it's gone, before the vessel appears in front of them. Santos does his best to slow down, but unfortunately it's too late and they collide with the phantom boat. They get aboard the Antonia Graza and start looking around, and it looks like, despite everything that she had experienced, Katie is still bored, until some other ghost takes over her toy to make it a more welcoming message. And then Murphy confirms an approximate number of how many passengers the ocean liner had.
Murph, how many passengers did she carry?
Over 600. The creme de la creme of society from all over Europe. Crew of 500 from Italy.
And when Munder nearly falls through the floor, Epps catches a glimpse of Katie. Meaning that she was deposit 1,101 into our meat bank, and she disappears before they pull Munder to safety. But Epps keeps her mouth shut so that she doesn't come off as a crazy person. As the crew continues to search the vessel, Dodge finds a digital watch, which means that they aren't the first crew to have found the ship. But Murphy doesn't believe in the first rule of finders keepers and calls dibs.
So we're not the first people to board this ship, but she's ours now.
Legally making the boat theirs. That's better than using the old My Germs, I suppose. They return to the Arctic Warrior to game plan what they will do. And while Murphy tells us about the Mary Celeste, a real-life ghost ship story, Ferryman gives us the title of the movie.
Ghost Ship.
A little bit later, Epps is talking to Fairman about what she saw, when he calls her out on not being okay. And when he explains how he hallucinates sometimes when he flies for long periods of time, she goes ahead and calls it a night. The next morning, the crew discovers that the ship is sinking because of a large breach in the hull. Because of the current, the ship collided with a bunch of rocks, tearing a hole in the hull, and they only have about 3 days to fix it before it's unsalvageable. And when Greer goes to call it in, according to maritime law, Murphy tells him not to because he doesn't want any unexpected guests.
Just leave it.
Your call, Captain.
So the crew gets to work on loading their tools and materials onto the ocean liner, while Santos works on repairing the engine on the Arctic Warrior. And while the crew starts getting ready to get to work, Epps finds a drained pool with bullet holes and bullet casings, and ghost girls. And Murphy discovers the captain's quarters. Epps wakes up a little bit later, having bled into a blood-sucking bullet hole that spits blood out of other bullet holes? That's a cool trick, but what the hell is the point? Meanwhile, Murphy is met with temptation when he finds a bottle of booze in the captain's quarters, and almost drinks it, but drops it when he sees the captain of the ghost ship. Party foul. Meanwhile, when Ferryman helps Epps out of the pool, it continues bleeding until it's full. And then they discover some previous salvagers, adding 7 more deposits into our meat bank.
Might need your help shutting it again, so get ready.
Are you sure we need to...
Bringing our deposits to 1,108. While a ghost shuts and locks these 2 in. And when Epps decides that this is a job better suited for the Coast Guard, or the Ghost Guard, they determine that they need to get the hell off this boat. But when they discover that the door is locked, they have to find a new way out. And as they say, when Ghost closes a door, it usually opens a window. Yep, typical haunting. But these ghosts lead them to a boatload of rats. Oh, and some gold. They bring back the rest of the crew to show them all what they found.
I say we get our boat going, grab the gold, and get the hell out of here.
Okay. We leave the boat, take the gold. Who's with me?
The group decides that instead of salvaging the ship, they are just going to ditch the boat and take the gold. But when Santos wraps up the engine repair, the ghost opens a propane tank. And when Epps sees Katie try to warn them, Greer helps deposit Santos into our meat bank at deposit 1,109. And then the Arctic Warrior explodes. Epps jumps in to help while Ferryman grabs Munder. Back on the Antonia Graza, the crew discusses what just happened and how it could have gone better, and how they will get out of this mess, while Dodge erupts all over Ferryman when he's thankful that most of them are still alive.
Hey, look, Santos came out here out of his own free will, just like the rest of us.
Hey! Enough!
Santos is dead because of it. Come on.
And then Epps motivates everyone and explains that in the morning they will get to work and get this boat moving. But Greer isn't motivated at all, and is pretty pissed that no one listened to him in the first place.
What do you say?
Well, now you want to know what the first mate has to say? Well, I say go to hell, Epps. And the Coast Guard, everybody's so worried
It's
about.
everybody's fault,
We'll
but
be
you're
already
wrong,
here right now. We'll be on our way home, millionaires.
And when he storms off, Munger makes a comment that gets him punched in the face. Meanwhile, Murphy, who is taking this pretty hard, decides that now is a good time to take back up alcoholism. Well, it's as good a time as any. A little later, Dodge and Munger play a game of rock, paper, scissors to see who has to take the first bite of some 40-year-old canned food.
That's all right.
No way.
No, really, it's good.
And Epps investigates the ghost girl. And while the ghosts mess with Epps by closing doors to the rooms, they mess with Dodge and Munger by spoiling their food. And then they mess with Greer by setting the mood.
Can't cheat on your fiance with a dead girl, right?
And then they mess with Murphy by sharing the booze.
Recapitalo. Benvenuto.
Katie shows off to Epps
Do you like it?
Oh God, you really are a ghost.
While Francesca shows off to Greer. And the ghost captain shows off to Murphy with some exposition. He shows him some pictures of a different boat, the Lorelei, that was sinking when the Antonia Graza came upon it. And on the Lorelei, they found the crates of gold and brought them onto the Antonia Graza, only for the Antonia Graza to disappear 2 days later. And he shows him that they only picked up one survivor from the Lorelei. Cut back over to Epps and Katie, where Katie is explaining that her and her shipmates are trapped on the boat, and that someone, or something, must fill the ship with souls to meet his quota. Who knew that death was so corporate? And when Katie starts screaming about how he doesn't want her to talk to Epps about him, she disappears before she can finish, leaving Epps baffled and confused. Cut over to Murphy, who runs into dead Santos, who lets him know that now he's trapped on the ghost ship and he's not too happy about it. We catch back up with Greer, who ain't afraid to make it with no ghost. But Greer, also not understanding the physics of an apparition, falls through her and down the elevator shaft, landing Greer as deposit number 1110 into our meat bank, and revealing Francesca to have been an early 2000s fast-moving ghost all along. Cut over to Epps, who is caught up to Murphy, only for the ghost of Santos to start screwing with him, and he attempts to kill Epps, thinking her to be the ghost of Santos trying to kill him. Hey, it's an easy mistake to make. But just when Murphy is about to murfer Epps, Fairman comes to the rescue and knocks Murphy out.
Hey!
The group drops Murphy into an empty aquarium for safekeeping, while Epps makes excuses for him.
No, listen to me. He was drunk. He didn't know what he was doing.
And after a brief discussion, they decide to continue work on the ghost ship to keep it afloat long enough for them to be rescued. They close off the tear and then begin pumping water out.
What do you think, Dodge?
She'll hold.
Okay, we're set with the pumps down here.
Start him up.
And when Epps goes off searching for Greer, with a little help from Dead Girl, she finds him, back with Dodge and Munder. One of the hoses gets blocked and Munder has to dive in to unblock it, while the ghost girl Katie takes Epps into the past, and shows her that all the chefs were murdered, and then the imposters poisoned the food. And then the surviving passengers were murdered the old-fashioned way, with guns. Well, how else are they going to fill that pool? Pools don't just fill themselves with blood. Oh wait, this one kinda does. She then shows Epps the old triple cross that gets pulled over the gold. Before it turns into a quadruple cross, when Francesca gets crossed by Jack Ferryman. Which means that Jack Ferryman was Jack Ferryman all along, and he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for this meddling Epps and the dead kid. Now these kills are all included with the 1,100 people who were on the boat to begin with, so we've technically already counted them. But good on the people who made this movie for showing a bunch of them. Epps, surprised by the revelation that the dude whose last name is Ferryman is in fact a ferryman, immediately thinks of Murphy and how they left him in an aquarium. But it's too late because someone moved the pump hose to pump water into the aquarium, soaking Murphy into deposit 1111 in our meat bank. Epps finds Dodge in the bridge and spoils the movie to him, letting him know there's a reason that the three of them are still alive.
You, me, and Munder, there is a reason why the three of us are still alive. That's why he came after us, to fix his ship.
I just saw Murphy.
But when Jack shows up and feigns ignorance, she ditches him on Dodge, suggesting that they both stay in the bridge while she goes to find Munder.
I want you both to stay here till we get back, you understand? I do not want you two out of each other's sight.
Unfortunately, as she makes her way to Munder, he is making his way into ground beef when he gets caught in some gears during his dive, grinding him into our meat bank at deposit number 1112. And Epps discovers this when she sees the water in the hose turn more mundery. cut back over to Dodge and Fairman when Fairman drops the act to insult Dodge.
You disgust me.
What did you say?
You heard me. You're a pathetic excuse for a man. She says jump and you jump. I don't have time for this.
But Dodge, not digging those mind games he's playing, uses his shotgun to blow Fairman away.
Well, you live for it. You willing to die for it?
But it's not effective. Meanwhile, Epps is setting up some explosives down in the hull when Dodge shows up to join her. She explains her plan, and he's not fully on board, mentioning the gold and the fact that it might kill them, but mainly the gold, and tries to talk her out of sinking the ghost ship by mentioning how they could have a life together, which baffles Epps. But when Dodge throws an out-of-character fit, we find out that Dodge has been Fairman for this short period of time.
Well, I suppose. That's because...
I already know.
And he would have gotten away with it too if he hadn't misread Epps and Dodge's relationship so bad, which means that Dodge died somewhere off screen, making him the 1,113th deposit into our meat bank. We find out from the ferryman that souls without sin cannot be marked, which makes them hard to control, which is why Katie was able to give Epps so much exposition. And he explains that he's a salvager of souls, collecting them on this boat before he sends the boat to management, and this is his job because he lived a life full of sin, but that the ship can only house souls if it's still afloat, and that he must fill his quota before sending the ship back. Epps tries to bargain with him, offering to let him keep the ship if he gives her her crew back. And he can't because no backseat. So when she goes to blow the ship up, he makes the ship fight back, knocking her down and knocking the detonator out of her hand, before jumping into the water and fist-fighting her.
All you have to do is fix the ship!
But while he holds her underwater,
I gave you a great opportunity! All you had to do was take it!
Dude, she's never going to be able to make out what you're saying. She grabs a spear gun and stabs him in the leg, freeing her out from under him. When she gets up, she takes aim at him, and then takes aim at the detonator, using the spear to set off the explosives. And as the ghost ship sinks, the imprisoned passengers swim to their freedom, while Epps swims to the surface. The ghost ship turns into a Disney movie and disappears below the surface, and Epps settles in for a long night. The next day, Epps gets picked up by an ocean liner and brought to the mainland where an ambulance is waiting. And while Epps gets loaded into the ambulance, she spots some familiar crates being loaded into the ocean liner. And then she spots some familiar face, seeing Jack Ferryman when he shoots her a glare. Hey, I'd be pissed too if I worked for 40 years and then had to start completely over. And the movie ends. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your chances of surviving this movie. Starting off our meat bank deposit, we've got the entirety of the Antonia Graza's crew and passengers. That's the dancers, that's the chefs, that's the people who got poisoned, that's the people who got shot, that's the people who got double-crossed, that's the dude that got triple-crossed, and of course, the lounge singer turned seductive ghost, Francesca, who got quadruple-crossed, starting our meat bank deposits incredibly strong at 1,100. We then have Katie at deposit 1,101, and since Murphy mentioned that there were over 600 passengers and 500 crew, Katie would make 601 passengers, which is over 600, because accuracy is a real concern here at Survivors Guilt. We then get the dead salvaging crew flooding into our meat bank at deposits 1,102 through 1,108. Santos heating up our deposits at 1,109. Greer dropping into our meat bank at deposit number 1,110. Murphy fish tanking into our deposit at 1,111. Munder gets ground into our bank at deposit number 1,112. And Dodge as our final meat bank deposit at number 1,113 when he dies somehow and somewhere off screen. Now let's take a look at our survivor. We've got Epps as our only survivor in this movie. I'm not including Ferryman because he's he's not technically alive, I don't think, and it hardly makes a difference anyway. So that means that out of a total of 1,114 characters, only one survives, which means that you have a 0.09% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, what sin of yours would the ferryman exploit to collect your soul? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, or even if it's not, go ahead and check out some of my other videos, and subscribe while you're at it. And if you truly believe in the work that we do here at Survivors Guilt, consider sharing some of this content and following us on all of our social medias. Look in the description of this video for that information. And, as always guys, thanks for watching, and don't die.
This one's gonna be a hard one. No pun intended. Turtles movie. A sequel was all but inevitable, really.